Hello.
Your motion fitness activity. It says Gmail would like to access your motion and fitness activity. This allows you to automatically prompt to enter meet on no thank you.
That's weird. How are you, Alton Carter?
I'm doing what I do when I do it.
I'm just checking my shit real quick. Okay. So
Hold on, I'm trying to get my earbuds because the sound is not working.
okay.
Very good. Put these here beats in there, see what we got, girl. Hold on a second. Do. Bluetooth on.
You don't hear me well?
Yeah, now I do.
Okay.
Now I can. It just wasn't working. I don't know. It's like it's peanut butter in the microphone or something.
There might be, who knows? Okay, are you ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I don't hear you. I don't hear you. I don't hear you. I don't hear you, man. I can't hear you. Here, let me go to the chat.
Let's see. Let's try this again.
Oh,
Oh,
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, what happened? You almost made me choke on my tea. What happened?
I don't know. It connected to the car and the earbuds.
Yeah, I thought you. Is your car on?
I turned it off. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Stressful.
Say it's fair.
Stressful shit.
It can be. It can be. I hate when I'm on someone else's and this kind of shit happens. Like one day I didn't have my headphones plugged all the way in, so I could only hear in one ear, and I don't hear well anyway. So I was stressing the whole time. Okay, let's get on with it. God, would you say it's fair to characterize you as someone who went through darkness, found your light, and is now shining it on others?
Not even.
No?
Yes.
Okay. So that's something that I say about myself all the time. And I feel like that's who I'm, attracting to the show. So what do you, first of all, do you feel like that there's I don't know why I'm asking this question, but do you feel like there is a big divide between who you are as like a luminary shining on others and who you are inside?
Definitely. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
100%. And part of that is I think there's constant struggle in probably meeting other people's expectations.
Like you want to be able to meet their expectations?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
there's part of you that wants, for me, part of me that wants to be transparent, and the other part wants to be vulnerable enough to gain people's support by being able to empathize kind of what they've gone through. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like those two things are like mutually exclusive to where you can't get people to trust you if you are fully yourself?
No, I think um I think it's only after the fact that I think about it. I don't think it happens. It's not like I do it on purpose. I can just look back and reflect and sometimes think, well, I would say this. The first thing I want to do is not empathize with people, but connect with people so I can gain their trust. And I think in that, like once you feel like you've established somebody's trust, it's almost like this underlying current of, uh, this fine line between being too transparent and stable. And I don't know.
I get it.
Yeah, and it's all subconscious. It's only me, my ability to self-reflect that I can look at some of that stuff and see uh kind of what happened.
Yeah, I hear that. Do you find yourself still? I remember a time whenever every interaction I had with somebody afterwards, I'd be like, I fucked up in some way or another, like just overthinking and sure, I definitely overthought their part too in the interactions, but I mostly, in hindsight, it was all about what I was feeling about myself. So do you still struggle with that? Like in that reflection period? Like that you
Yeah,
may have done something?
yeah, yes, I think I'm better at reflecting on not so much if I messed up, but just the content of the conversation. So I used to be super critical. Um, and then I realized, like, even within myself, that there's a lot of, you can see everything right and people still take it wrong. You can say things with the best intent. You can say a phrase or something you believe that is completely uplifting that you would never imagine in a million years would be taken the wrong way, and people still take it wrong. So I I've had enough of that happen that I don't really hover around there. I think it's now when I recognize that I really did get it wrong that tends to bother me.
Yeah, yeah. Are you pretty is it easy for you to see when you got it wrong?
Um, yes and no. I'll say it's easy for me to see when I got it wrong, when I know I got it wrong. This is going to sound like circular reasoning. It's There's a lot of times I don't see it, and there's the problem. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like the ones that are obvious, yes, yes, I know I've gotten that wrong. Um, but just because I'm not aware of it doesn't mean I didn't get it wrong. And that's the part that it's hard to, it's a fine line because it becomes speculation, right? You
Right.
can speculate on how you said something wrong or something came across, and it just, you're occupying brain space with something you're never really sure of unless you get direct feedback.
Right. So is most of your reflection based off of feedback or just reflection?
Yes. So reflection, gosh, it to me that self-reflection comes from just kind of replaying conversations, and I guess looking at what could I learn from that experience as much as trying to help people. Um, and I think sometimes that reflection has to do with maybe how to begin the next conversation.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's like what can I learn uh, from that experience, I guess, talking to that person or that interaction.
Yeah, I almost feel like though that the learning of like sometimes it really don't matter. Somebody gonna take the shit how they gonna take it. Like really is one of the most important lessons we can learn. Because I think me becoming my most aligned self really had to decide like you're not for everyone, man. And I don't want to be. Like I would rather be for people who are 100% or whatever in alignment with what I'm doing than people who don't know who I am and just think they like me or appreciate me or whatever it is. But I think I spent so much of my life being a person who was trying to be liked by everybody for the same reason. Like it truly was because I wanted to help others. And that was the only way I knew how to do it was to for them to feel the connection, for them to feel the trust, for them to, well, let's be honest, need me and want me, you know? But it also allowed me to ignore every fucking feeling I was ever having because I was too focused on the other person. So I think it really helps me balance now any of those fears of rejection or judgment because I don't know, I'm super okay with just not being meant for everyone. Where it's a little different for you is that you really have like broken your way out into the public speaking arena. Like I'm still small time there. So I don't I'm glad because I've really come into my own before. Like I get really like a lot of jobs in that area. But do you feel like that does make you think more about what people think about you?
Yeah, but I mean, so there's a couple of things I want to hit on. The first one, is yes, it does make me think about that, but in reality, people they can read my book, but people don't know me. I mean, let's
Right.
be honest, they don't
Right.
know me, and it is. I mean, I'm that person that definitely wants. I mean, oh my gosh, are you kidding me right now? Are you
It's all
seeing
right.
all this?
Yeah, but it's okay.
Yeah, let's keep it interesting. Um, Good thing you can cut all this out. But it's interesting to me that what I find myself doing is you're wanting, well, I'll say this, people don't know me. People often read my book or they hear me speak, and all of a sudden they feel like there's this connection. And so I've come to understand potentially how dangerous that is, not only for me, but for other people, because
Hmm.
you just heard a 1 hour speech. Um, but in terms of like connecting, I guess, and wanting people's approval, it's the same thing. It's empty. Most people, and I hate saying this, but looking back, I think there's so many things that are transactional that were not meant to last, um, and that's hard. Um,
Yeah.
those emotional connections when you speak, even if people don't say anything, people don't come up and have a conversation when you're up on stage or you're in a crowd. Sometimes, you can connect with people from up in front, and
Right.
it's just transactional. It wasn't meant to be this sustainable relationship. It was just a moment of time. And then I'll go back to what you said about people being in alignment, right? That was interesting to me. It just made me think about a lot of things. Of number one, I'll never know if anyone's in alignment with me, and I also think for me, I'm at a point where I'm kind of okay with that because it's not damaging if they're not. And there was a time really that at self harm, not self harm, but self sabotage. I thought that was important,
Yeah.
for people to be in alignment and to understand my perceptions and the way I think. But I
Hmm.
also think how beneficial it is for me to realize that I occasionally need to be around people who are healthy but not in alignment with me.
Yeah. Oh, I've never thought of it that way. Well, and I really, when I'm using the term alignment for this conversation, I really just mean same goals, same values, whatever. But I like that. I mean, I think, I wonder too if this was a thing for you, but I, we've had a lot of loss in life. So, like, it's hard sometimes for things to be transactional for me. Like, when I make the connection, it's hard for me to then walk away from it. Like, no matter how brief it was, I'm probably never going to not like remember that person in some capacity. And I remember how much of a struggle it was to like lose contact with someone. It was really hard for me to let people go in any capacity. Was that something you really struggled with too, just from having so much loss, or are you more like it's easy to separate?
Certain occasions. Most of the part, I spent a childhood of, when I say losing everything, emotional connections. Man, they hit real strong when you make an emotional connection for somebody. But I mean, honestly, I think because of my past experience, if I were to be honest, I think it tends to become diluted, not on purpose, but this idea of history has shown that over time they all kind of fade away. When you're at 17 foster homes, how long is it going to last? And I don't think I really ever thought about um, a term life or shelf life of relationships, like this strong sense of being connected to people. And so I think for me, I guess the short answer is I'm not surprised or offended or upset if things kind of fade away, because that's just kind of the way um, life has been. And I also think for me, somebody like me that's a public speaker, um, really my goal is just to be kind of a relay, like just one leg in a relay of people's life. And for all of those, it's different. And that was hard learning that it may be a
Yeah.
day, it may be a week, it may be two conversations, but my role is not to be that person. Um,
In the long term, to
yeah,
sustain the connection. Yeah, that makes sense.
100%.
I feel like that's where I'm at right now, is getting better at that. Where, because like, even so, I told you that I do some contract work at a school for children who are unhoused. And the first time a girl all of a sudden got housing and just was gone before the next week, I was like, well, fuck, I have a fucking contract with that school district. I'll go fucking see her there. I don't have fucking any time to do that. And so at first, I really thought I was going to do that. And then I was like, sis, this is your lot wound that is calling very loudly to you. And we don't need to do that because it's not going to do either one of us any good to go overextend ourselves to continue this relationship when she could just get a new counselor and maybe one that can see her even more often than I can, you know? Yeah. I'm getting a major echo in my fucking headphones. It's pissing me off. Uh, Hopefully the sound turns out okay. But yeah, I'm working on it. I've at least identified that I have a hard time letting people go. I think I don't I don't want to analyze you, but I do think that something in common that we have is this underlying belief that everyone leaves. And
Yeah.
that's something like I can say that from a different place now. You know what I mean? Like everyone most people do leave because they weren't ever like it was never intended for them to be there to sustain a long-term connection. But the place that I used to say that from was very wounded, just very, I'm not worthy enough for them to stay. Nobody chooses me. I'm not special enough. You know, that was my big narrative. Did you ever struggle with those?
Oh, what? Yeah. And again, it's so funny that I don't think on the surface I thought I considered those things. I just think it naturally happened. The other realistic thing that I had to come to grips with, that's hard to separate, is that it's not exclusive to me. I mean, this is the way people are all over the world. It just doesn't happen to Alton. Alton's not the only one that people pop in and out of their lives of on. And sometimes, I feel that way. I feel like it is exclusive to me when in reality it happens to everybody. And hell, I'm sure I do it to other people, not intentional, but life happens and things go on. And I think the catastrophic thing or the collateral damage from that is that I let that stuff affect me personally when it's just life.
Right.
And we're not designed to save people. Whether that's we can't save people. And my ego, sometimes I feel like I failed if I had a conversation with somebody and it didn't turn out right. Well, that's that person's fault. Or if that person looks at me and they don't see me as somebody that has value or somebody that um that has invested in them, and I don't get the return that I want,
Hmm.
that's the price of being who we are. And that took a while to figure out that it's part of the territory.
Yeah. Something you said earlier that really struck me was this idea of it really bothering you to feel, I don't remember if this is the word you said, but misunderstood that whether it's your intentions, your goal, your motivation, whatever, was that a big theme in your life? Like fighting for feeling understood by people around you?
Yeah, yeah. Man, this is where this kind of gets kind of real for me. Um, just this idea of being misunderstood, 100%. That I never, ever, ever felt like anyone understood me.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was different. As an adult, I'm quirky, I'm weird, I'm creative to a fault, and it's hard to understand. On top of being dyslexic and having ADHD, and so often you try your best to help people understand you, and in reality, they can get a glimpse of it, but there's no way they can ever know completely understand you because number one, I'm all over the place 90% of the time.
Hmm.
The other part too, if I were to be honest, has to do with I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand who Alton was because of 17 foster homes, because of the imprints and relationships that I had that affected my life, that directed me in 7,000 different directions. That I, I mean, I think when I say still self discovery, it's not like I'm out searching. I'm
Right.
trying to improve like parts of myself, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but definitely spent a whole bunch of time and energy trying to convince people or trying to get people to understand me when all it did, I think, was muddy the waters.
Yes, what I noticed with a particular friend of mine is that when I tried harder to get them to understand me, I just came off as defensive and tone deaf. And I have a little remorse over that, but it was also one of the most like it allowed for the most growth, I think,
Mm.
because I I I've learned I have to go within and be like, "What the fuck? Like, what do I need to learn from this? Because I'm real fucked up over this, and I really don't understand any of it." But whenever I was unraveling, like, okay, I have this huge loss wound, and I will fucking reject anyone before they can reject me every time. And I learned that really we're all kind of walking around with the same narratives of like, I feel invisible and I'm too much and not enough all at the same time. And I think the one that really just crushed me was like, well, two probably, but I have the weight of the world on my shoulders and no one to fucking help me carry it because that narrative started back, in foster care when we're all, no one really is helping you. And then, the way our brains work naturally, it confirmed that bias over and over and over and over. But I think what really hurt me was feeling like because of all those things at my core, I was fundamentally unlovable. So if I'm walking around with that as my core narrative, whether I'm aware of it or not, but that's the lenses I'm viewing every fucking interaction in the world through, yeah, I guess people aren't going to understand me because I'm hiding behind every one of those things. Do you feel like that's something that you're like, for lack of a better phrase, better at now, or is it still like something you struggle with?
Yeah, I mean, I've been put in enough situations now that I am better. I'm certain it's probably there at times, but I do feel like, uh, again, it's not really for. I mean, let's be honest. Is it better for me to walk around hoping people understand me, or that I help people understand themselves better?
Right. Yeah, understand themselves absolutely.
And it's not that I have a recipe, but I'm saying I think there are things we can do to help people understand who they are. That doesn't make them a project. It could be from just being good people. It could be just from listening. It could be from volunteering. It's not always about having the right words to say. Sometimes it's just about helping people be seen. And so, to me, I think that's what's become more important to me than anything else is this idea, this drive that, man, if I can just help other people understand themselves in a positive way, then that's the greatest thing. Because understanding me, I mean, you understand me, that's only going to help you when we interact. You
Right.
can understand yourself better, then to me, that's what it's about. And I think the deal, maybe the focus should be is how do I understand myself better through interactions with other people?
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. I think that's what I'm trying really hard to do because well, I believe that I attract the experience for a reason. So I want to figure out what I was supposed to learn from it before I, go into catastrophic thinking. Or I think too, like just coming to a place where I'm super in love with myself and really do understand myself. Obviously, I'm still learning every day about why I do what I do, but um, I don't hurt my own feelings all the time. So something that I say a lot on here and with clients is that we're all kind of walking around loving in the way that we want to be loved, but not necessarily aware of it. And when we do that, we're creating this social contract full of expectations with the people, right? Like, you're going to love me back in the way that I'm trying to love you, right? And I feel like what we do is we have that person sign a contract, whether they're aware of the expectations, because you've certainly never voiced them to anyone. At least I didn't. I wasn't really aware of them. It's not like it was a conscious thought of if I do this, we'll do this. I have a really bad echo. But is that something that you would say you struggled with in your lifetime? Was like
Oh yeah, yeah.
the expectations?
I mean, I'd like to say, oh man, I've gotten completely over that, but honestly, 100%. You send a message to somebody and they don't respond the way you want them to. That's an issue. Or you say something to someone that they interpret it completely backwards, that's a frustration. So I think the mystery is how in the world do you put yourself in a position to um, not predict the outcome, but predict the lesson that you're going to learn long before it happens. Like you decide that no matter what happens, I'm going to learn a positive lesson from this, not let it happen and then search from the positive. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, I get you. I haven't really thought of it like that except for like terms of detaching from outcomes. Like I will do this and whatever happens, I know I'm gonna be fine. So that's the
Right.
way I've used it. But Alton, I gotta be honest, not every time am I actually fine.
Well, and see, and there's my I'll say this. People like you and I, it's that not being fine that makes us who we are. And I know it sounds completely stupid. Maybe it doesn't sound stupid, but that not we're used to not being fine. So why the heck do we get surprised at it?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, we know. And I would say this too. We can predict in a lot of cases, we can predict when interactions are not going to be fine. So what if there was a way, and I'm saying this like I have an answer and I don't, but what if there was a way that we know going into a situation that we're not going to be fine, that we can decide what lesson or what positive thing we're going to pull from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Part of me feels like that would just be our inner child trying to protect us from any outcome. But then I feel you because this morning when I was getting ready, I've had this thought a lot lately about this exact thing, about detaching from outcomes and being fine, right? But today I was like, maybe the point is to continue to have interactions without expectation. But if you're not fine after, you're not fine. Like I'm really coming home to myself every day. So it's like I've gotten to this place where I can really accept because I battle perfectionism a lot and it's really sneaky and I don't always know that's what I'm talking shit about to myself. But I really got to this place where I'm like, sometimes I'm really nice and sometimes I'm a fucking bitch and I'm going to love myself regardless. Like, I'm going to make reparations when I need to
Yeah.
and I'm going to try my hardest, but like, I can't keep trying to reach perfection. It's not going to happen. I just have to accept not a lack of accountability because I am accountable to myself, but I have to accept I'm going to hurt people. Like, that's going to happen. And I have to be okay with that and know that that doesn't change my worth or value as a human. So in this whole idea of resistance keeping us stuck, I thought to myself today, oh, that's an area I resist. I keep saying detach from outcomes, don't be sad or whatever. I don't tell myself not to be sad, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the self-talk when you're trying to get yourself through something. And then I thought, well, maybe that's the point. Maybe you're supposed to have heartaches and failures, obviously, but be let down by somebody else and still come home to yourself and say, like, that hurt and I'm gonna work through that. But like again, nothing external of me changes my worth or value as a human. Like I exist. I don't have to water myself down. I don't have to fit in a box. I'm perfect exactly who I am, whether I'm full of failures and mistakes or not. Like I am in my human design, which was to be imperfect. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
trying really hard just to now I'm like, okay, I don't want to resist pain either. And I feel like that's what I've spent so fucking much of my life doing. And that was interesting. And I'm trying really hard to just roll with it. People right by your window.
Oh, well, she ran into my car.
I know. I was like, oh,
I mean, the girl bumped it, but it's okay. Well, so I feel like you just proved my point on this finding the positive. If you know the positive, to me, before crisis situations or hard situations is to me, it's like knowing that you're gonna be okay. you may not be able to always predict a positive outcome, but to understand that, man, it's just another hiccup. To me, I think that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, yeah.
Hard, hard, hard time, hard time comes. They're coming no matter what. And I think knowing that you're strong enough to, or to think or understand that you're strong enough to come out on the other side of it, which we do. I mean, most of the stuff we do, it may not be like we like it, but I mean, we just have to push through. And so that's what I've been trying to focus on is not, yes, how bad things hurt. That's probably usually where it starts. But the other part is, um, man, don't be surprised when people let you down because that's what they do. You just got to figure out a way to pick yourself up and try to learn something that makes you a better person according to your standards, not to meet someone else's expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Because I think I spent so much time. I always refer to this as the middle ground where you're here, the where you're trying to get is here. End result's gonna be the end result. Doesn't usually change a whole lot, but how you get there is what you get to control. And I spent so fucking many years just making that middle part excruciating for myself and everyone around me because, well, fear, but that gave me control. If I could sit and overthink and be pissed and blame someone else, it gave me control and I was a little less afraid, or at least I thought I was. But now I think having the proof that like eventually you get to the other side and look, we're still alive, right? Like we've gone through some real shit and we're not just alive, like we're thriving. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
now I'm like, okay, what can I do to make this middle part a little more of a peaceful existence? And that's where I've been for probably 6 months or so, where I'm like, I want to, first of all, my currency is peace. I'm not giving up any more of it freely for situations that I don't fucking get an ounce of control over. And so I'm just working really hard on like the end being in mind when I'm beginning, which is I already know I'm going to be fine and I can get to the end and be fine after a lot of unreasonable thoughts and behavior, or I can get to the end and be fine and just go with the flow, ride the wave, let it take me where it wants to take me, and then see what the outcome is. But regardless of the outcome, like I'm not, the only way I'm changing as a person is just to continue to grow from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think more often than not I kind of get in my own way. So we talk about like following these roads that lead absolutely nowhere. And it's funny how often an interaction or something will happen and I know it's a destructive thought and it's something that isn't helpful and yet I allow myself to go there. Um, again, if you have a conversation with someone and they say something to you that literally seems condescending, this is what I've been working on. Shame on me for taking it that way. Because there's been a million times that people have given me compliments that I took as condescending, and it's a choice. It has to do with the state of mind, maybe what happened before or after that. But my focus really has been on deciding that no, you can call me a butthole, a jerk. And if I want to, I can, this is hard to do, but I can twist that and make it positive. Like if you said, hey, Alton, you're such a jerk, how you say that, even in a text, can be taken however you want it to. And so that's what I'm trying to do is figure out not so much to rewrite somebody else's story, but so their script is not telling me how to live my life. And that's what I've spent way too much time doing is letting people say things that even if it didn't affect me long term, that got inside my space, inside my mind, and it just left me feeling miserable when this whole entire time I could have just looked at what they said of a different perspective and been completely okay. But it was a choice. And so I'm trying not to fault people for even if they're being condescending or saying things that I mean, they're saying things that are offensive because at the end of the day, I get to decide. And realistically, I think the egotistical part of me is knowing that I'm strong enough that at the end of the day, like, who cares what you think? But yet I allow myself to go there anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it's hard is knowing that you're strong enough to counter, but yet you choose not to. And I think that middle space between knowing that I'm strong enough to not let these people affect me, and then letting these people affect me, that's a struggle. And I think I have to be over here and over here when in reality I need to swing back and forth and then end up in the middle. And that's the hard part to me because I'm so emotional.
Yeah, me too. I feel that. Because for one thing, sometimes we got to hear some shit about ourselves that we don't like, you know? And I mean, that's, I don't, I'm defensive as fuck. Like that every time, even in this current reality, it's hard for me to take feedback because in my world for so many years, like if you're doing something wrong and you're not perfect, you are not worthy of love and belonging. You know,
Yeah.
that was real programming. And I couldn't take compliments from people because I didn't feel a single ounce of worth within myself. So like I couldn't handle good or bad feedback because I was so unsure of who I was, even in the moments where I thought I knew exactly who I was, you know, like just feeling so sure of certain parts of me. And I think that that's just like logical, rational me understands, but this inner child shit is like still fighting to be seen and heard and loved. And I remember like I was really upset and I was like, man, I gotta I gotta figure my shit out. Like, I was like, I clearly have fucking daddy issues. So like what is this thing in me that's like just feels so shitty about myself? And I mean, my dad died when I was 15, and it's not like I had like a lot of interaction with him before then, but I what I narrowed it down to was that I didn't like he didn't make me feel special and he didn't choose me. And that was the cross I was carrying for so many fucking years is somebody please validate me to the point that I can feel special and chosen. So it wasn't enough to have a I needed to be their best friend. But I needed to be the best, everyone's favorite, period, because I needed to feel special and chosen. So, like, if anyone put me in a position to where I'm like, oh, well, then I'm clearly not special to you, they were out. Like, that's it. They were cut out. And I mean, I've cut off so many fucking people. And in my mind, that is not at all how I was characterizing those interactions. I was like, oh, they're showing up for me or they're, well, they're bastards, whatever the case may be. But really, I've more people away than I have allowed in my whole life because of this need to feel special and chosen. And that being the lens that I was looking through, well, of course, that was going to taint every interaction because I'm confirming to myself I'm not special or chosen through every interaction. Is that something you can relate to?
Yeah. Well, my first thought is probably the greatest lesson I learned was just thinking about how this idea of feeling chosen and special, and again, it's transactional. I think I was searching. I think I recognized in my life that people did see me as chosen and special, and it felt like I was on top of the world. And then the part of me would say, well, if they really knew me, they wouldn't feel this way.
Oh my
The
God, yeah.
where I struggled was that like if I didn't feel special because they had something else going on in their life, that's what became so hurtful to me. And it's sad because I would do the same thing to them. And
Hmm.
then I came to this point to where like I understood that I cannot be, it is absolutely impossible for me to be the most special thing in somebody's life all the time. That's just unrealistic. And it's not only not fair to that person, but dadgummit, that's me. That's literally me being selfish. And part of this idea of being special is realistically, how could I ever really feel special if I didn't feel that way in my own skin?
Hmm.
Um, and I remember this interaction one time with one of my preachers who made a comment. about, basically told him that I was tired of everybody thinking I was perfect because people like at our church loved me at the time and I was doing things right. I'd written a book and it was doing successful. And I remember one time basically, Alton, that if you think that everybody thinks you're perfect or you're spending energy trying to get people to think you're perfect, you're failing miserably. And it was this idea that inside my head, if I do all the right things and if I say all the right things and if I write enough books and I do all this stuff, people would see me like they believed what they were saying about me would be true inside their mind. But in reality, what was happening is that crap was getting inside of my head. And those people saw my flaws the whole entire time. They saw my imperfections. And in my mind, I was setting this standard that's not what they were wanting. They were
Right.
just saying, hey, Alton, we appreciate who you are. But to me, it's like, oh, I got to step up my game because they think this about me. And in reality, they knew I was messed up. Now, here's the part.
Mhm.
Here's the thing that I found interesting through that interaction when he said that to me that day. He said, Alton, if you think people think you're perfect, you're failing miserably. And here's what I walked away with 3 days later, because first it pissed me off. Why do you say that? But the end result that I learned was that most people who care about me, they know I'm not perfect, and in their own way, they love me anyway.
Mhm.
And they weren't expecting me to be perfect. That was a stupid thing that I put up on myself. And I think I tend to get lost into this idea of life and trying to meet people's standards. And in reality, I need to treat myself. I hope this analogy makes sense because I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. In reality, like we should be like guitar lessons, like beginner guitar lessons. So when you go take guitar lessons, realistically, you can learn 5 chords and play every song,
Mhm.
right? I just need to pick my 5 chords and live my life this way instead of trying to do things completely differently. These are the 5 chords that I operate in, and this is me. This is me. Um,
Mhm.
and I think I found myself in terms of using this guitar lessons as a reference, I found myself trying to do things outside of my scope that I couldn't do. And that's when I was 100% absolutely lost and I had no direction and I felt empty.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally resonate with that because, well, for one, I remember a friend of mine making a birthday post about me or something a couple of years ago. It must not have been birthday because I literally didn't know who the fuck she was talking about. I texted her because she used the words bestie and shit like that, and I was like, "Who is this about?" And she was like, "You." And she had said she always says the most amazing shit about me, and I didn't resonate with any of the shit she was saying. I was like, that does not sound like me at all because I lived constantly with it. If you really knew me, you wouldn't feel that way. And now I think that's part of the just being authentic is like I fully embrace all my flaws and I'm not carrying really any shame about them. And I learned that there's not this destination that I'm heading to that where one day, I fucking wake up and reach nirvana where I'm Buddha and healed and just like perfect all the time and calm all the time and sweet all the time or soft all the time, that I am this really big mixture of all elements. And some days one thing will be more prominent than the other. And on other days, it's the opposite. And I'm fine exactly how I am. But it was the pedestal that I was placing everyone around me on that separated us because I was like, oh, well, I'm worse than them because. And so they were up here as a way, really, now I understand that it was a way to protect myself, that if I kept separation in this manner, I'm not saying some separation isn't healthy, but in this manner, if I kept some separation because everyone else was on a pedestal, it kept me safe. But damn, it hurt my own feelings every minute of every day, just like feeling like everyone else around me was just so much better than me. But using my judgmental ass to be like, oh, I'm so much better than them because when really I was just hating myself.
Yeah. I think, and I'm gonna have to go here in a second, but I think this here's something to think about, because there was something you said that like it made me realize like this epiphany that I went through great. I go through great lengths trying to protect myself from other people, but in reality, the epicenter of all the shit that I've been through lied within myself. And it's funny that like you put up the walls and you want to fight other people that in reality are trying to help you. But I mean, at the end of the day, people can say whatever they want to. It ain't my abuse that's is my those things cause some issues, but it is me. It's the things that have happened to me, perception, my negative thoughts, the way I perceive things, the way I handle things is the biggest problem that I face. And so trying to figure out a way to navigate through some of that stuff and be okay is hard. But what you said really made me think about I gotta spend less time fighting battles that I've already won. Like
Oh, I love that.
I'm constantly fighting like a negative interaction with somebody. I've already won that because I'm going to walk away and those people realistically have no control over the situation. Well, in fact, even if we're arguing or having a disagreement, in reality, the only control they have is what I'm giving them. It's when I walk away from that that it becomes an issue for me. Um, and so it's not, I just realized I spend way too much energy fighting battles, um, these external battles, when in reality, 90% of my issues are internal.
Yeah, I feel that. I like that. I like the way you said that. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I appreciate it. And if you have like a bio and shit, just send it over. I'll include it in the show notes.
All righty.
Okay, have a fabulous Friday.
All right, girl. We definitely want to do this again. I appreciate it. I got the most wrinkled pair of pants you've ever seen. I put them on, they're black in the house, and I'm telling you, they got more wrinkles than Mother Teresa had. I ain't kidding. But they are literally, it looked like they were wadded up in a ball. So I'm fixing to run in Sam's to see if I can find a pair of pants with less wrinkles so I can go to this school and speak. All right, girl, we'll do this again.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.